On this week's episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure,
we're making it up as we go along as we raid the Lost Ark.
and welcome back to, I suppose this is technically season 2 of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. I'm Ed Dollister.
And I'm Mitch Halleck.
And we've got a great show for you this week. I'm not sure exactly, is it, what are we doing? Is it Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold, perhaps?
No, I thought it was that Bruce Boxleitner show, Bring 'Em Back Alive. Well, today's June 12th here in the United States.
Yeah.
I know where you are. It's probably April 30th in Australia.
It's August 14th, which is when a particular film came out.
On well, okay, on this particular day, in 1981, a certain little movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark premiered here in the United States of America by George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and starring Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. That's what happened 39 years ago today.
Can you believe it? 39 years. When and the rest is history. And that's it. Thanks very much for joining us. No,
see you next year.
That's right. When did you first encounter Raiders of the Lost Ark?
You know, it's funny. I say it started on June 12th. That's the official opening. But I saw it the week prior. Mm-hmm. And speaking of prior, I saw it with a Richard Pryor movie called Bustin' Loose. They used to have sneak previews. I don't think they do that anymore. And what they would do is they would show you a movie in advance of its regular release date. And they would maybe test the audience with a survey, like a pencil and paper, and ask you what you thought about the movie, what scene did you like, what do you thought about the actors. It was very archaic and primitive now looking back at it, because I went to a couple movies like that. But for Raiders of the Lost Ark, it was a Friday night. Mm-hmm. Here's the odd thing. Bustin' Loose with Richard Pryor was a rated R movie, and Raiders was PG. So if you wanted to go see it, you had to bring an adult companion with you, because I was only 13 or so, going on 13. And I couldn't get into the movie. So I brought my grandmother, who was probably in her late 60s by then. And the reason why that comes into play is my grandmother, she was from Italy. She was terrified of snakes. And when the Well of the Soul scene comes on with Indiana Jones and the thousands of snakes, my old Italian grandmother got up and started screaming Bisha, which was like Italian for snakes or something, and ran out of the theater and left. And I just sat there because I wasn't going to leave, because that was the best part of the movie. I was like, what are you doing? They're going to find the Ark. I can't get out of here now. So I remember there was little windows in the door in the back of the theater. Yes. And she was only about 4'11", maybe 5 feet. So I'd look over my shoulder and I could see her standing on her tiptoes. And just about that much of her eyes would come out, and she was still watching the movie to see what happened. But that's when I first saw Raiders of the Lost Ark in the movies.
Yes.
Was the week before. So I'm going to say that was probably June 5th, maybe June 4th or something. It was a Friday night. So that's the first time I saw it. Now, being over in Australia, we just figured it out. They didn't open simultaneously. When did Raiders?
They opened, it opened on August the 14th here. So it wasn't too big a gap to the American release. But the first time I remember anything about Raiders of the Lost Ark was on Friday nights. Someone will fact check me. But there's a show on ABC called Four Corners, which was like a news program, and they used to cover a little bit of entertainment as well. And they talked about Raiders of the Lost Ark, the new film from the creators of Jaws and Star Wars. They didn't say, I don't think they spoke about Close Encounters, or definitely didn't mention 1941 in that breath, but they showed, and this is probably just with, the rose-tinted glasses or the foggy memory, but they pretty much showed the opening sequence in the Chachapoyan Temple. It felt to me, they felt to me as an 11-year-old Actually, I would have been 10 when it came out.
I was going to say 1981. I was born in 66, so I must have been 13.
Yep. So I was 70, so September. So so I was still 10. And they showed that opening sequence, and I was going, "Oh my gosh, that's Han Solo. What's Han Solo doing?"
See, I didn't recognize him as Han Solo, and I love Star Wars, and he was my favorite character. But my friends said, like, "Oh, that's Han Solo," and I'm like, "Hey, you know." My wife doesn't think Harrison Ford's a great actor, but he must have been good enough for me because I didn't even catch that was the same guy. Their hair was totally different. You know?
Yeah, well, they did publicize before, Han Solo, Harrison Ford, best known as, they didn't say best known as, what's his character from Force 10 from Navarone, I don't think. Oh, there's my cat making it.
I was going to say, you got your own Raider of the...
I do. That's Lois there.
That's Lois.
But they showed that, and I begged my... Barnsby, that's right.
Yeah. Sad that I know that, but yeah.
Well, we all know that. That's okay. And I begged my parents, can I go see it? And it was like, I don't think it wasn't PG here because they didn't have, I don't know if they had PG. It was NRC, which is not recommended for children.
Oh.
So my dad had to go with me because I was obviously 10, couldn't go. And I remember seeing it. I still remember the cinema's still there. I remember exactly where I sat. We weren't too close because in case it was a little bit scary. And it was absolutely amazing. And I was hooked. And from then on, I remember that 1982, there was a dress up at school, dressed up as Indiana Jones from Raiders of the Lost Ark, the best I could with I'll find a picture of it. I've got a picture somewhere here of me in a vine. It was because I never knew if his jacket was brown or dark brown or black. In those days, he only had dodgy photos. So I had a sort of a dark gray vinyl jacket. My dad made me a bullwhip out of a rope that he stained, and we drew all that. And I remember I think I had cobwebs on me and a rubber spider stuck to my hat.
Oh, nice.
To dress up, which was really cool as a 12-year-old. And I looked more like Mutt Williams than Indiana Jones, unfortunately. But I just loved it and was absolutely blown away by the storytelling and how relentless the movie is. There's only short moments to break. So...
What's funny? I was thinking about it. I was in a Catholic school, all boys Catholic school here, high school. And I remember I wasn't very good at religion. It's kind of funny. I had a bad grade in religion and I had a bad grade in history. I mean, it was one of my worst classes. I might have actually got an F.
Ooh.
Maybe.
For fantastic.
Sure, it looked like a B when my parents actually got the report card. Somehow that F turned into a B. It was before the computers and stuff. This is just a handwritten card. But I remember not liking those courses at all. I was like, oh. And when I'm talking about religion, I'm talking Old Testament stuff where they go through the entire Bible, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, and they would write it and we'd have to memorize it. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was the most boring thing in the world. I was like, oh my God, who cares? And I remember the story of the Ark of the Covenant only because there was a part where they're taking the Ark from the temple and they're going alongside of a mountain, and somebody, the Ark bearers, the guys carrying it on their shoulders, one guy slips and falls or something. Mm-hmm. And the Ark falls, and this guy named USA, because I remember that was his name. I'm like, hey, just like the country. And he reached out and he touched the Ark so it wouldn't hit the ground. The guy's trying to do a good deed. And because he wasn't from the tribe of Levi, because there was the 12 tribes of Israel, only the Levi tribe was allowed to touch the Ark. I don't know if they were wearing blue jeans or what.
Yeah, if you're in the tribe of Wranglers, you didn't have a chance.
Yeah, no, you're done. You're done. Maybe that's what happened. He was wearing Lee Riders. So he touches it and he's struck down dead by God because he didn't follow the rules. And that's the only thing I remember about it. Yeah. And then this book comes out. And that's the Raiders of the Lost Ark that I know. That's the first novelization. It came out in April before the movie. And you look at that cover, and it's not something that screams the greatest adventure film of all time. It looks more like Casablanca or a Spencer
Tracy movie of the 50s.
Yeah, like a love story. And I'm like, what is this going to be? And I remember reading this book in study hall, and this fellow named Bill Tuttle, he looked at me and he goes, what is that? I go, oh, it's the new movie from the creator of Star Wars and Jaws. And he goes, Lost Ark, what is it about? Noah's Ark? I'm like, no, 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 no. And at the time, there were these really low budget, I don't know if they had them down in Australia, but they were called Sun Pictures. And there was no History Channel, there was no Ancient Aliens, and they would make these documentaries, and they would come out to the theaters. It would be like the Lincoln Conspiracy, The Secret of Boggy Creek, which was about Bigfoot, and they would make these movies like In Search of Noah's Ark, and it was a 90-minute documentary where they're like, is the Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat or whatever? And that's what a lot of people thought this movie was going to be. It was going to be one of those cheesy documentaries as they go look for, historical Jesus or something like that.
Yep.
And then the other fellow in the class, Brian Riley, he's looking at it and he goes, Lost Ark, Spielberg, Lucas, is it about like a giant whale in space that goes around and eats spaceships and stuff? Because he was trying to combine the two movie franchises. Yeah. And I'm like, no, but that's a really weird concept about a big spaceship going around eating other spaceships.
Yeah.
And I always think of that when you saw The Force Awakens and Han Solo's flying that big ship and he eats the Millennium Falcon. I go, look at that.
That's
30
right.
years before the movie came out, this guy, Brian Riley, in high school, knew that visual. But anyway.
Maybe they heard about that as well, and they used that in The Spy Who Loved Me. The giant ships that would open eat the submarines.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looked like. Yeah, I didn't put that together till now. But anyway, Raiders came out, and there was also a comic book, because there's always a comic book.
Yes.
And Marvel Comics put out their adaptation. They had a bunch of different ones. This is the regular floppy comic book.
Yes.
And then there's a magazine one that has a beautiful painted cover by Howard Chaykin. But I have to tell you, this is the worst artwork ever for a movie adaptation, because they didn't have the movie. They didn't have any reference photos whatsoever. So what you got is basically Walt Simonson, who's a brilliant writer. He does tons of Thor. Is they just gave these guys the script. So they would have to go through and, lay out the movie. They never saw the finished movie. They don't know what they're talking about. So you look at scenes like when they're pulling the gun on Indy.
Yep.
And all that happens. It was not very exciting. Okay. And this book did not help at all, by Campbell Black. That is not, have you read this?
Oh, man, yours looks pristine. Mine, I read I felt like I must have read it multiple times.
I'm one of those people that never bent the spine. I was obsessed with that.
Yeah, that looks like mint condition.
Like I bought it off the shelf yesterday in 1939. But the thing of it is, there's parts of this book that are really cool, because I remember he's a teacher at Mitchell College, not Marshall College, and it's in Connecticut, and I'm in Connecticut, and I'm like, hey, that's my name. So I was all excited. I was like, hey, there's a link to Connecticut here, because I don't know where your hometown looks like, but New Haven, Connecticut, where I grew up, never changed. It's a very old colonial town, so it's got old buildings. It looks like it did in 1940, 1960. It doesn't change at all. And I would go to the movies, and I'd wait with my grandmother. We'd catch the bus to go to the movies. And I said they could film a movie, and this is going to come in later on. They could film a movie here set in the 50s, and they wouldn't have to change any of the sets or the location, because this place hasn't changed in years. It's such a boring town. It's just a bunch of old museums. Little did we know, years later, that would come into play with Indiana Jones. But I digress. So the movie opens. It's a huge hit. Okay, I mean, it is one of the biggest movies of the year at that time.
It's the biggest of 1981.
The reviews were tremendous. Everybody loved it. I was trying to find here. I had a Time magazine that reviewed it, and everybody gave it 4 stars, 5 stars, because what they did was recreate those schlocky, cheesy Republic serials from the 30s and the 40s, but they treated it like it was an art form instead of what it was just cheap entertainment. And I think that was just revolutionary. I think people couldn't.
And Steven Spielberg said that he always thought he was making a better quality B movie, basically, with the technology of the day, the high tech technology. So
Did you ever read The Making of Raiders Lost Ark? I have that here too by Derek Taylor.
Yes, it's on my shelf there. I poured over that. And that, and there was also the movie Souvenir magazine that came out, which had the Richard Amsel artwork that's behind you. That I think that's pretty dog-eared. My copy.
You're talking about this?
That's it. There it is again, and yours is in mint condition.
Oh, I have two of them.
Oh, okay.
Because I tell you, well, we'll go back to the second, but this, when we talked about this before, when we did The Empire Strikes Back, when you would go to the movie theaters, they would sell souvenir programs in the lobby at the candy counter. Mm-hmm. And I've got them from Star Wars, I've got them from Superman and Close Encounters and all that. But when this came out, that cover is simply gorgeous. That Richard Amsel, and we talked about that on our movie posters episode. I mean, I couldn't get my eyes off this thing. It was so great. I would draw this again and again. And inside, like you said, there's the making of the movie and there's diagrams. And then there's a name that I knew, Jim Steranko, who's a comic book artist. And I'm a comic book fan from day one. And there's right back there, you'll see Jim Steranko artwork on the cover of the Raiders Lost Ark game.
In fact, let me just pull this off my wall here.
Yeah.
There we go. There is.
Oh, yeah. I wonder who got that for you.
I know. To Ed from Indy and Steranko. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mitch.
But that was years ago. In fact, that was like, I think 2010, I'm going to say I got that for you when I first met Jim Steranko at a comic book convention. Years later, I would bring him to my show. But the ironic thing is Steranko painted that and a lot of the images there, but he had Indiana Jones smoking a cigarette.
Yes.
And if you look at the cover of the board game, you could actually see there's a little bit of an edge to it because they had to delete.
That's right. Pre-Photoshop.
We can have the kiddies doing that. But Steranko designed the look of Indiana Jones, and he was just given a little bit of direction by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and said it had to look like Humphrey Bogart from The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Yes.
That rough and tough look. And, I mean, it was just, right off the bat, I can't think of any other movie. They would compare it to James Bond, and my dad was a huge James Bond fan, but I like James Bond, but not much. But Raiders Lost Ark was, like, totally different. This was like my James Bond. It's like my dad could have Sean Connery and Roger Moore, and I can have this Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. That'll be my guy.
The legend goes that when Spielberg and Lucas were holidaying in Hawaii after Star Wars came out, and it proves, obviously Star Wars proved to be the mega hit, so Lucas could relax a little bit, and that's when Steven Spielberg said, I'd really love to direct a James Bond movie. And then George Lucas goes, well, I've got something better. Indiana Smith. And the name was taken from I think there was is it a Steve McQueen movie, Nevada Smith?
It was Nevada Smith. That's a Steve McQueen movie.
That had come out, and basically Spielberg didn't like the name, but took it on, and it is essentially, I mean, they're similar and different in structure. The James Bond with the opening gambit that's not really related to the film per se, and Raiders follows that mold, the breakneck adventure. I think I feel like they're more Raiders is not a family, like it's not a kid film, but no. I think it's a more not family friendly version than a James Bond movie. Maybe it's a bit more accessible. I think everyone loves Indiana Jones, and I think it's just to do with that character. He's a little bit more and we've spoken about this on the IndieCast, our Indiana Jones podcast. Check it out at theindycast.com. Indiana Jones is more of an everyman as opposed to James Bond, who's a little bit more, can survive anything, certainly in the earlier, versions or iterations of him, I think.
Yeah.
You feel every punch that Indy gets.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I remember the scene where Marion's tending to his wounds, and he's got gashes and cuts and bruises all over the place. And you're like, oh, my. James Bond never had a cut on him. He never looked like that. Indiana Jones looked like literally he was dragged behind a truck because he was.
That's right.
No, I'm trying to think my first reaction to the movie. I just remember seeing it, and it was a Friday night. I wanted to go tell all my friends about it, but I had to wait till Monday. So there was no way to tell, and the movie didn't open up for another week or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I just remember like, oh, this movie's so great. When I got to class on Monday, I told everybody about it. And suddenly, even though the semester was ending for the year, I was interested in all that religion and all that history stuff, because that's all Indiana Jones. I'm like, oh no, I got to go back because this is the stuff they talked about in the movie. Well, and it's funny. No, I was going to say I turned my F's to an A. I do remember that the following semester I was so into history and so into religion. All the grades I had just reversed themselves. And if it wasn't for Indiana Jones, I wouldn't have had good grades in the
It's
the
fun
following
and educational.
It's funjucational.
That's right. Funjucational or edge. Anyway, I do remember doing exactly the same, and I'm sure we are not alone. I remember going to the library, getting books on. I started to buy books on archaeology. There was some Time Life series that came out that I bought on.
Time Life magazine.
Mysterious worlds and everything like
Ancient
that.
Secrets and stuff. Yeah.
I had that. I remember going. And probably the first time I ever read, I went to the library, to the religious section, went to the Bible, looked exactly, because it explains exactly how big the dimensions
the Ark was, the cubits and all that.
Yep. Yeah. So I was reading all that. And then I remember there was the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember watching that and going, hang on, that's not what the Ark of the Covenant looks like, because it was different. Everything like that. I do remember with excitement. It was probably about 1981. It was a Sunday afternoon, looking through the TV guide, and there was Raiders and I'm going, what? And it was Raiders of the Seven Seas, which was a film from the it must have been 1940s. And I thought, I thought it was Raiders Lost Ark on TV, but it wasn't.
Well, you know what's funny? I started watching here. They would have, you know what it was? Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think, was the first time I watched Siskel and Ebert, because they had their show on public television. It was called Sneak Previews. It wasn't called At the Movies. It was called Sneak Previews. And they would review movies. And I remember so desperately trying to find out more about Raiders of the Lost Ark that I would go through the TV guide and I'd looked anybody talking about it. And it says Siskel and Ebert review Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I remember watching that, and they opened with him swinging across on the vine in the Vito's with the darts and the snakes in the plane, Reggie and all that. And they go, that's Harrison Ford as globetrotting archaeologist Indiana Jones in the new spectacular film by Lucas and Spielberg. And they loved it. I just remember the two of those guys gushing over the movie, and they were like kids because they couldn't stop talking about it. And he's like, "Where are the snakes? Remember the airplane fight scene? This and that." And Roger Ebert's like, "We didn't even talk about the big boulder that comes into the big giant boulder." And literally they were giddy. And I remember Gene Siskel, the taller one, going, "It's amazing. It's the greatest movie ever." And you started hearing that, and I remember going to this. I saw that movie 17 times that summer because that's all I did. I would just go to the movies and watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then Superman 2 came out, but Raiders of the Lost Ark was the big deal. And I remember going there, and my high school history teacher, Ralph Proto, was in the audience, and I'm like, oh wow, and I'm watching his reaction because I had grown up with him. I went to school with his little brother, and he was, he's not a guy that's going to like, yay, rah. The scene when Indy jumps on the horse to go after the Ark, when Belloc and everyone takes it from him. And he's like, I don't know, I'm making this up as I go. And all of a sudden the tent bursts open and you hear the John Williams score and din, 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 and then he rides off on that Arabian horse. And I remember, do you remember the thing they do at stadiums when they call the wave? And
the Mexican wave, I think they used to call it,
As Indy's riding down the dirt road to go after the convoy, you see all the workers stand up as he goes by. And I'm thinking, hey, look, it's the wave. And that the audience just erupted in applause. Everybody was screaming like, go get him. And then you'd see the Nazis, and there's the Ark, and they're going along. And then you look in the distance and you see that cloud of dust coming in. Din, 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 din. And I just remember you couldn't hear the dialogue or anything because people were just clapping their hands, so excited. And I looked over and I saw Mr. Proto. He was like on his feet with his hands in the air, like, yeah, screaming. And I miss that so much. When I go to movies, people are so reserved now. I think they're worried that they might get thrown out of the theater. They probably would. But Raiders was probably the biggest audience participation film I think I'd seen before Star Wars, because it started with Jaws, when everyone would hide, you know, when they'd see the shark coming, everyone would scream, go, go, go. And then Rocky, everyone was on their feet cheering for Rocky at the end. And then, of course, Star Wars with Luke blowing up the Death Star. So there was always these movies that would come out, and the audience was part of the movie. I mean, that was the reason why you went to the theater. Of course, we have home video and all that. That's another reason why. But I just remember that. And the other scene when they're on the submarine and they can't find where Indiana Jones went, and Captain Katanga is there, and the fella comes out and he says, "Oh, have you found Dr. Jones?" He goes, "No, I've looked everywhere, and I found him where?" And then he points across the ocean, and the John Williams music starts up again, and you see Harrison Ford pulling himself. He looks so freaking exhausted.
He does, like, and he's going, "How do I get in here?"
I just remember the music's kicking in. They're cheering on the boat. Everybody in the audience where I was cheering. But I just remember the look as he's just lifting his leg over onto the deck of the thing. I'm like, that to me was like the perfect Indiana Jones, because it, like, yeah, he is a normal guy. He's like, you gotta be kidding me. I gotta keep doing this. I already went under the truck and the horse and the snakes thing, and okay. But that, of course, starts the biggest problem we've always had with this movie is, where in the hell did he go when that ship went under the water?
Well, I do remember it's from the comic where he actually has his bullwhip.
I was going to go get the comic book.
And he ties himself to the periscope. And
he ties himself to the periscope.
And thankfully, they don't dive. And he, I suppose he could drag himself along, like, behind the truck, with his bullwhip, but it's only a short distance to the island.
I would go then look up things like hypothermia to see if he could actually survive. Again, though, the making of that movie, there is a scene in that program I just showed you a couple minutes ago where they show the miniatures of the sub. And it's the same folks that worked on Star Wars, Joe Johnston and Dennis Muir and all those guys at ILM. And there is a shot of the U-boat, and there is a little figure tied to the periscope. So they did film it, and there's a scene in the documentary Making of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was also on public television that fall. And I remember that being huge. I had to rent that one. They filmed that sequence where he's actually tied to the periscope, and that was like the last thing they filmed, I think. But it's never made it into any of the deleted scenes in all these years.
I'm hopeful, because obviously next year is the big 40th anniversary, the 40th of Raiders. I'm pretty sure we're going to get a 4K box set.
No
I'm pretty confident that they will have some of those deleted scenes on. Oh, what was that?
You have a cat. I have a full-grown woman here.
Oh no! Don't look at it. Keep your eyes shut.
I know.
Hello.
Special appearance. It's all you see is the hand. You'll never see.
That's right. Oh dear. So
we'll leave that in.
Yeah, we'll leave that in. We'll leave that in. So, but yes. And the other thing I was going to say about Raiders Lost Ark was
that's a deleted scene, right?
It is. There you go. Is that up to like movies up to that point had action movies. The ones that I used to remember were maybe the what was it, At the Top of the World, the with Doug McClure, all those, The Island at the Top of the World, and
you say Top of the World, I think of James Cagney and White Heat. Top of the World.
Oh no, there's no. The Land That Time Forgot, and all those. Okay. Remember those ones? So like
when I was talking about sneak previews in Ebert, there used to be no respect for the set. There used to be a thing called a Matinee at the Bijou, and the Bijou was the theater, and Matinee at the Bijou would run every Saturday. And I think that's how I found out maybe about sneak previews in Siskel and Ebert. They would run old movie serials, and they would show you, like, when you were a kid, and it'd be like a double feature. Not a kid, but my mother's age. They would go to the movie, and they would have a newsreel, they'd have a cartoon, they would have a movie serial, and then they'd have the feature film, which was like, an hour or something long.
Mm-hmm.
They would run these, it was like Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, all that type of stuff. But there was one, and I'm going to say it was called The Lost City or something like that. And it started off, and I remember, you always think when you find something that you're the first person to discover it.
Yes.
But when the movie opens up, the crawl says Chapter 2, Peril in the Pacific. And the letters came up, and it looks just like the Star Wars letters with the, how it goes off into perspective, into the distance.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my mind being blown, going, they stole that from Star Wars, not thinking that was from 1941.
Well,
and then I'm
Flash
watching
Gordon
it.
did that as well with that.
Well,
And
I never liked Flash Gordon, to be honest with you. I always was a Buck Rogers guy, even though it's still Buster Crabbe, who was the Harrison Ford of the 30s, because he was these multiple heroes.
Yeah.
I think he was Tarzan as well in one movie or so. But anyway, that schlocky, like the car goes off the cliff, to be continued, and then you go next week and you see he jumps off just before. All that stuff was in there. And you're right, I started watching all these old serials and the Spy Smasher. I remember going to get VHS was just coming out, but they would have them and you could rent them, and they had a lot of these old Republic serials. I'm trying to think of some of the other titles out there. They were never as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark, but
no.
Boy, oh boy.
Well, we should say, obviously, you can have a look here with us with our. I've got my Penman hat. I've got my. This is from the late 80s, early 90s from Disney. An official Indiana Jones.
Oh wow!
Leather jacket, but on my.
Well, now being an indie nerd. That's from The Last Crusade, because it's got the snaps underneath the collar there.
Yes, so it's.
You don't want to get into that.
No,
I can't believe we started this episode off, of all things. We didn't really tell people who we are after all these time we've done this show. The reason why we're the qualified experts for this stuff.
Well, we should say. Well,
we should have led with that.
I know, that's all right. Well, we were making it up as we go. So,
well, I just realized something. If somebody could say, why are you guys talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark? The funnier thing is why we didn't do this on the very first episode, because I would think a lot of people that are watching this know our voices.
That's right. They might not know our faces, but they know it from the IndieCast, which we've been.
The IndieCast, which is used to be the world's only Indiana Jones podcast, almost 13 years old.
Yes. The world's most popular Indiana Jones podcast. Yes.
No, I was going to say that started in November of 2007.
Yes.
And there's a popular website called theraider.net, which has been around since 2000. And that's all things Indiana Jones in one source on the website. And there's also some other podcasts called throwmetheidol.com. We all became friends because of Indiana Jones. There was a show called The Force Cast, which was all Star Wars, and we would listen to that dutifully because we were all Star Wars fans before Raiders.
That's right.
I honestly, I wasn't a huge Jaws fan as a kid because it scared me so much. I liked it and I saw it, but I never really saw it more than once. I was a Star Wars guy. And even when Raiders of the Lost Ark came out, I was still a Star Wars guy. I didn't think I'd ever love any movies besides that. And that's what the big craziness came in. We'd fall in love. But you're a huge Indiana Jones fan.
Absolutely.
We were listening to the
I was listening to the Force Cast, and with King of the Crystal Skull coming out, I thought there needs to be an Indiana Jones podcast. So
did they actually ask for auditions?
I think what they did is they were doing some Indiana Jones news, and I felt like I should be doing the Indiana Jones news. So I put in a pilot, and they said, this is better than we can do. So sure, you've got the gig. So got the gig, episode 1, just myself, and then I get a perfumed email from yours truly, and away we go.
That's because the year prior, in June, it's so funny now I'm thinking about it. It's almost the anniversary of that too. Here in Connecticut, that place I had mentioned earlier in the show, how it never changed and never looked any different. I had just quit my job as a software marketing director, and I was in New Haven, where I'm from, and I was in a building, and my friend had a software studio, And on the first floor of that studio, there was a brand new temporary, they rented space, and they had put white paper all on the glass windows so you couldn't see inside.
Mm-hmm.
And it was called Genre, Genre, Genre Productions. And nobody knew what that was. And I talked to my friend. I go, what's going on downstairs? He says, oh, there's some movie company. Why don't you go try out for it? You love movies. I go, yeah, I do. He goes, don't you love like Indiana Jones and all that stuff? And I go, oh, yeah, because my office where we had worked together had that movie poster behind me. And I had always, that one I got from the Star Wars fan club back in 1980 for $7, I think it was. That's the original one there. And I said, yeah, all right. And I went downstairs and I talked to the people and I said, what do you guys do? And they go, oh, we can't talk about the movie project, but if you're interested, we're going to have an open casting call. And this at the time was around February.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew what the movie was. Steven Spielberg had been in town in November, and Yale University's there, and his son Theo went to school there. So Spielberg was at a local Italian restaurant. He comes up out of the stairs. He's on Chapel Street, which is the main street in New Haven, and Yale University is across the street. And people saw Spielberg, and he was doing this with his hands, and he was looking at all the scenery around Chapel Street. And Kate Capshaw, who would be Willie Scott in Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, she was with him as well. And I remember people asking him what he was doing, and he said, oh, nothing, just looking around. And the way he was framing that, like a movie, you're like, well, that's interesting. What is he going to do a movie here in New Haven? Because he had done a movie called The Amistad, which is about a slave ship rebellion that took place historically in New Haven, Connecticut, 1830s or so, 1860s. No, 1830. I'm sorry. So anyway, no one's putting this all together. Spielberg, movies being filmed downstairs. There's talk of a new Indiana Jones movie because there was talk of an Indiana Jones movie forever. So sure enough, they put an ad in the paper that says going to be casting the brand new Indiana Jones film that's going to film right here in New Haven, Connecticut. And then it made sense because the university, Marshall College, was supposed to be in New Haven, Connecticut.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh my God, I got to apply for that. So I dressed up. They had an open casting call. I went down there. I applied. My dog's name was Indiana, our big golden retriever. So I don't know if that helped me at all. Maybe it didn't help me. I talked to the casting director. His name was Billy Dowd. And we talked about it. And what they were doing is they were going to local thrift stores and they were buying 50s clothes from any place they could find, Salvation Army, Goodwill. And what they did is they filmed the sequence where he chases Mutt Williams around and the Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. What we didn't know is that it was going to be Indiana Jones. So when they finally announced it was the Indiana Jones movie, my head exploded. Went down there, saw Harrison Ford, saw George Lucas, saw Spielberg. I got in trouble because I walked onto a live set, which I didn't know I was a live set. So I was writing reports for the Raider.net about the filming of Indiana Jones. I was showing the photographs. I was showing the set pieces.
Yes.
And I would write these articles and I would put them on the Raider.net. I was the official reporter for the Raider.net on the making of the new Indiana Jones movie. So when you come along and start doing the podcast, I had applied for the Forcecast as well. And I said, hey, I'm the guy on the Raider.net. My name's Mitch. And I write all the articles about Indiana Jones. And they go, well, we just got a guy. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. They go, we just got a guy who auditioned, so we're going to go with him. And you would come on and you would do only like 5 or 10 minute segments. It wasn't very long. It was just a part of the Forcecast. They're like, we're going to go over to Ed now and get an update on Indiana Jones. So they would go to you, and then you would read whatever articles you could find on the internet.
Yep.
For Raiders Lost or Indiana Jones, and they were my articles, and I would be sitting there going, wait a minute, I wrote that, because it was like sometimes word for word, and I remember writing to you saying, I'm the guy whose copy you're taking. So Indiana Jones is a factor in the fact that we did the podcast.
Yes.
We're doing this show now.
Yep.
So our friends that people might hear from the IndyCast, Laird Malamud, who worked at Lucasfilm on the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, worked at Activision, Oculus, we know him. We know a guy named Joe Stuber who does the Comic Book Central podcast. We know Keith. We know Indiana Mick, where we got our hats from.
Yes.
That we're wearing. So when you and I talk about, and I'm not forgetting Ron Longo and all the rest of
there's
them.
Dan Z, who's now on, got his own podcast. There's so many.
Yeah, Coffee with Kenobi. That's another show.
Yep.
So it's so funny that this Raiders of the Lost Ark 39 years ago would eventually bring all of us together on these podcasts, on these video shows, and all around the world as well. We have Keith over in Austria. We have you in Australia. I'm here in Connecticut. Joe's in Ohio. So it's a small fan base, I'd say, for a very dedicated fan base. We're not as big as Star Wars. We're not as big as, I don't know what the Mission Impossible franchise is. They have like 6 or 7 movies. We only have 4. But there's something about the character of Indiana Jones when he came out, and I don't know if it's because he was an old-fashioned hero or, one that doesn't give up, one that never stops.
Exactly.
There's something about that character.
I think when we were, when we were talking before about, he's accessible. He is an every man. I mean, when Deborah Nadoolman, who created the costume, I'm lucky enough to have a Tony Nowak. That's a Tony Nowak jacket who did the ones for Crystal Skull, and just that iconic look and the feel, and he feels like it could be. It's not a $500 designer suit that James Bond would wear or anything like that. It looks, and all looks like it makes, you'd wear that, wouldn't you? It can protect you from being dragged behind a truck. It can protect you from cobwebs and spiders, and by lifting up your collar and all that sort of. Actually, that's one thing in Raiders Lost Ark I never noticed until later on. When Indy goes into the
Raven?
Into the Chachapoyan Temple at the start
he
of Raiders.
He's got
his collar up. He's going full on Fonzie, which I didn't really notice until I go, hang on, that's why he knew. And I was going to say as well he
knew there was going to be spiders, so put your collar up.
That's right.
Or because he was in a movie with Henry Winkler called Heroes, and he was just doing that as a little.
Yes, that was actually, that's right. That was 1979. But what I was going to say earlier was that most adventure movies up to that point, if they had as much action as that opening sequence, the boulder sequence, I would have been happy. That was it. But that was and it's like, what? That's just the opening? Oh my gosh. And it just kept going. There's so many things. And that's why, Indiana Jones is a beloved character. He was just named as the most popular movie.
Yeah, of all time. I saw that. Yeah. So there was something about that character that when he comes in Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's like, just mind blowing. I can't get enough of this guy. I can't wait to see another movie. And I remember reading, and it drives me nuts. I have like a Fantastic Films magazine. I think it's over here, where they talk to Frank Marshall, who's the producer. And he says, oh, well, we're going to do a bunch of these movies. We're going to do like 5 or 6 movies, and they're going to be Raiders of the Lost Mickey Mantle baseball card, or Raiders of this, or Raiders of that. And I thought it was going to be the new James Bond. I literally thought like every 2 years you would go to the theater, just like James Bond was, on a regular schedule, and there would be a new Indiana Jones adventure film. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be so great, because Star Wars was every 3 years. And then it was like, well, now we have something to wait in between the movies, because we were waiting for Return of the Jedi. So we had Raiders. And then I'm like, okay, after Jedi's over, we'll have this new Indiana Jones movie, and then on and on and on. But it didn't happen that way. We were happy. We got what we got. But I talk about Star Wars, and as an Indiana Jones fan, there's not a lot of merchandise like there is for Star Wars. It's not toy. What's the word they use when they talk about Star Wars? Toyetic. We have your main guy.
Yep.
Okay. That's about it. He's got this, and I thought I saw this on another show. They said this is the most boring figure ever made, the Rene Belloc. He's not in the safari outfit. He's not in his cool white hat outfit. He's just in a shirt and a scarf and his accessory.
I would say that he's got the map.
Yeah, they said like no kid didn't lose that in 3 seconds.
I would say the Charles Winchester by Mego from MASH probably would have been the most boring figure of all time. But
there's your mechanic.
Yeah.
Again, there's not a lot of Star Wars. There's not a lot of Indiana Jones.
No.
And these didn't come out when the movie came out. These came out in 19. We've talked about this in another show.
82, I think.
Right?
Yep.
And by that time, the movie was done. And of course, here's the only other. Well, there's another Indiana Jones, but this one here, Indiana Jones in the German uniform. Notice how he's got the razor stubble on this one, but on his own figure, he doesn't have the razor stubble.
Yeah,
that drove me crazy. Look, he's clean
and
shaven.
You can't swap heads or anything like that. So he's clean shaven there.
This was a cool figure though, because it had the gun, it had the whip action. I mean,
and bendable knees, because they were based on the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance.
Yeah, the Butch Cassidy
with
and
William
the Sundance.
Catt. What was the the sequel, or the Butch and Sundance, the early years.
Young Butch, the early days,
yeah, something like that. But they were great. Yeah, mine are up on my shelf. All I
was gonna say
all there.
This is probably the most common one. If anyone collects, you can find a Cairo swordsman.
Yep.
And there he is back there. But they also have the play sets. They have the Cairo scene. Do you
have those and the basket? Do you
the basket too?
Excuse me. Do you have the Do you have the play sets?
I do have the play sets. I have the box for the map room. It's over there somewhere. And then I have a complete loose one of the Well of the Souls. Actually, no, I have a box.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, they cut see these little proof of purchases?
Yes.
Oh, I know what they did. They sent away for the Renee Belloc one because I have it and somebody had cut that little proof of purchase seal off the box, and I couldn't figure out why they did it. But now I know why they did it. They sent away because you could get, if I can see it here,
that's Belloc. Right. Belloc in his ceremonial.
Yeah, we went over that. Yeah, it's not. There he is, right there at the end. That was very rare, released on card. I think we've talked about this before, but most of it was,
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of merchandise. You could get.
And the hardest one to get is, of course, Marion Ravenwood.
Yes,
she's back there. I have her loose, and she came. I think she even came with a stand because they made her feet so tiny.
In fact, hold on. Let me just.
He's going for it.
I'll grab his. So there is. There's.
Yeah, that's what mine looks like. Yeah.
I'll see if I can get that.
And did she come with a monkey too?
She did. There's the stand. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's the stand.
There's the stand there. Yes, unfortunately, my monkey has disappeared somewhere. So
there they all are in the back.
Yeah, they were really good. But there wasn't a lot of merchandise. I do remember that the fan club, when this was, they did do for Temple of Doom. Was it LJ?
LJN.
Yes, brought out some. Yeah, they brought out some figures.
And
a
Thuggy. Yeah.
Now, is that what I think it is?
This is the ugliest thing ever. It's the Raiders of the Lost Ark snapped together model. And I used to have it shrink wrap, but I opened it up one day because I was so bored. I wanted to see what it looked like inside.
Yep.
It's just a bunch of brown plastic. See all that? They make it look so good.
Yeah.
Oh,
the artwork's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it does not look like that. They have the exciting scenes on the side of the box. Oh, wow. Look at that. Yeah.
I had the Hoth base.
And it was that like this too?
Well, you got at least the snow walkers and things like that. It was pretty cool.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's tiny. Okay. Yeah. This is like,
I'm going to have to search one of those out on eBay because I never had one of those. So
here's the tray. This was the desert scene.
Yes.
So what you did is you built the flying wing over here. That's the Nazi airplane that he tries to attack. And then you put the soldiers everywhere. It's just, if you think some little kid is going to be able to like get a microscope and paint these images, you're crazy. I mean, I'm looking at the little figures of Marion and Indy right here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if you could see them on the computer. They're tiny.
No, they're a little bit hard to just lift it up a little bit. There we go.
Can you make them out at all?
Yeah, we can see. But you know what you can do? You can recreate if you set all that up, and then you can put on your Raiders trucker cap, and you can recreate that scene of Steven Spielberg, setting up the shot. I think that would look quite good. So.
That's true. That's actually in the book where he's laying down there doing that. And here's the instructions too. It tells you how to build it and snap together.
I'm gonna have.
I was gonna build it at one point, but I'm like, you know what? I'm crazy if I try. I
might have to do that. I do remember the only merchandise I had was the figures, which I've got at that stage. The Star Wars fan club was selling the hats. The one on my Nuke the Fridge indie. They
I have an indie hat too, but it was from Temple of Doom.
Yep.
Stetson put it out.
Oh, okay.
And it has a sticker inside the crown. It's got a little Indiana Jones.
And my other one, I've got a few, has got, in fact, let me just grab that one. Hang on. I've got it.
I remember they sold those at Macy's department stores. They had a black one and a brown one.
Yep.
And I got the black one for Indiana Jones.
This one is, I'll see if you can see the.
Oh, I have that one with the little pin. Yeah.
The pin. Hang on, there we go.
Yep.
It's a bit hard to focus. But
I have that one here.
That's got the Indiana Jones. This is the one I wore when I was playing Richard Hanna in the 39 Steps. I always try, and whenever I'm in the playing the 1930s, I always wear my indie hat. So, but there wasn't a lot apart from the amazing. Well, the soundtrack, of course, the soundtrack album was pretty amazing.
Was this?
Ooh, what's that? I don't have something else. I'm going to have to buy.
Oh, you didn't? You ever saw this?
No, that didn't come out in Australia, I don't think.
Again, it looks like it's brand new because I keep my stuff good. This came out and it has the
Minty Mitch. We'll call you
Minty Mitch. It's the illustrated screenplay. It's got all the storyboards.
Yep.
From the movie and the shooting script. So there you go.
I'm going to go on eBay after we record. So
the thing of it is, this is how I learned how to write a movie script.
Yep.
Because I would write movie scripts and I use this because it has all the direction, all the comments and how it's written, but it's single spaced. And I didn't know that when you get a movie script, they're double spaced. So I wrote a script called Father Vegas in 1996 using this as a guide. I wrote 120 pages single spaced without the proper margins. And then when somebody saw it, they formatted it. Basically, I wrote a 10-hour movie. I had no idea. So,
and I think you can actually find that Father Vegas script up on the Rebel Scum forums for the IndieCast. So,
and it's also available on Amazon.com.
Oh, there you go.
You can go type it. Look, this was the soundtrack you talked about.
Yes,
that's that.
And I love the slip with all the pictures in it. It was pretty cool.
Oh, mine doesn't have that.
Really?
No. That's it.
Mine is covered in photos. Mine's covered in photos from the film.
This is all there is.
Okay, I'll dig that up and I'll put a picture up.
Well, you might be confusing it with this.
Now that's the one I sent you, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I've got two of these. You sent me. I thought you sent me the
Japanese one.
Yeah, this one I got from Glenn Nelson from High Adventure. This might be what you're talking about because it has all the pictures in it.
No, I do have that one, but that's not the one I'm.
Now, this is the story of Raiders Lost Ark using original dialogue from the movie, which is great because there's another one I have, which is narrated by William Conrad, who played Cannon on TV. He was a very
big
Jake
actor. Jake and the Fat Man?
Jake and the Fat Man. Yeah, he was the Fat Man. And it's not any of the sound from the movie. It's just a simple little cassette. And, you beep. When you hear the sound, turn the page.
Yes.
And that's the Raiders Lost Ark one I had. That I did not have until you sent that to me. So.
Yep. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad I could get something for you to add to your collection. There's so many. I mean, there are, even though that, it's there wasn't a lot of stuff out there.
We had
there's some, the Mad Magazine. Yes.
Yeah.
Again,
and then there was
Minty Fresh Mitch.
They're all like that. There's Cracked Magazine.
Yes.
with they're coming out of the Ark of the Covenant.
And do you have Crazy magazine?
I do have Crazy magazine where he has the eyes drawn.
Yes.
Yep, that's over there too.
Good.
And they're all minty. They smell just
I think
like
we might have to call you Mint Hallock. That might be your new name.
My new name. My new name.
But well, I've got I just wanted to show you a few just while we're things that are harder to find.
Yeah.
One when King of the Crystal Skull came out, one thing, whatever you say about King of the Crystal Skull, I think most people will agree that the merchandise that came out was fantastic for Indiana Jones fans because it covered all the movies. You can see behind us the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, where it has, do you want to open that one up, Mitch? Where it's got all the these like the Lost Wave of Raiders Lost Ark figures who were fantastic. They were absolutely fantastic. You also had a couple of mail-aways, and one of my favorite is the Ark of the Covenant here. So, which you could mail away for, which I thought was fantastic. I loved that inside you had the sculpted sand, which was in there, which was really good.
Oh, I never looked inside. I was afraid my head would melt. No, I have mine, but I never looked inside. Then there's the Sideshow Collectibles.
Yes.
There's that Ark of the Covenant I have over there. That's a heavier one. It's not as shiny. It doesn't have that vac. What is vac?
Vac metallized.
Yeah. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very dull, and it's not the same. That's a much better thing.
They did a lot. This one, when I was in Tokyo Disney Sea, I remember Les David, who runs the Ravenwood Museum, which is the world's largest Indiana Jones collection. He's going, I don't have one of those, which is this. It's sort of like a Mount Rushmore Indiana Jones. I've got money in here, Mitch. That might be able to fund my eBay spending for the next week. But yeah, that's quite interesting, that one there.
I have, of course, we have here. Oh, this is the fertility idol. This one's from Sideshow Collectibles. This one's heavy. This is like about 6-7 pounds here. But there's also, I have a bank of this. There's a little hole in the top you put your money in. I think I've got a couple versions of this thing. A bank, a paperweight, little tiny ones. I mean, like there's not a lot to merchandise Indiana Jones, but what there is, they've done so many different variations. I can't tell you how many Ark of the Covenants I have here.
That's right. And this is I think my favorite, which is this board game here.
Ed, we're gonna do that scene from Rise of Skywalker. You're gonna hand that off to me.
Hang on. If I go like that, if I hand it that way to you,
like that, and I'm gonna just like reach back and pull it out there.
I'm just glad we're not shirtless at the moment. That's all I can say. Is that minty fresh as well, sealed?
It's still in the plastic.
You haven't played it, obviously. It's a great.
No.
I do. I had. I remember Easter. This was Easter 1982. We had Easter eggs and everything like that, and then my mum came out and said, "Oh, we've got one gift for you," and she brought out this game, and then we played it all that afternoon on the good old dining table, and still fond memories of that game. It was a really good game. Some beautiful artwork too, especially.
I had no idea.
The artwork on the back of the board, really nice.
I had no idea that was a different game than that one until you came over the house.
That's right.
I thought it was the same game with just a different cover artwork.
Yep.
And then I was showing you, and you said, it's a different game. I'm like, what? And I'd never looked on the back, and it is two separate Raiders of the Lost Ark games. Now, the funnier thing is that one's called Raiders of the Lost Ark. This one's called Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Now, there you go. And in 2008, that's when they officially changed it to Indiana Jones. And so it was, well...
Is yours called that too?
Indiana Jones from Raiders of the Lost Ark, yes.
Yeah.
So,
they
funny.
retitled it.
Yeah. What do you think of? I mean, I'm a Raiders Lost Ark guy. I'm still like a Star Wars guy. It's not
Well,
a New Hope, but anyway. But that's okay.
speaking of things that Raiders Lost Ark did, when this came out, this was on VHS. This was one of the first made-to-own movies because it broke the price barrier. I
Yeah,
think
it
it was
was
$29.99,
in
maybe.
Australia. It was $49.99.
I mean, prior to that, movies were $100. If you wanted to own a VHS of a movie, it was crazy. That's why you would rent them, because it would cost too much money. I had rented Star Wars and maybe Empire, but this was $29, and you got to own Raiders Lost Ark. And what was even better, it had a trailer on it for Indy's next adventure.
That's right.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Death, and then it was Temple of Doom.
Yes. In fact, and as you can see here, I've got this is from a video store that my parents got me, which is from the same video. So the video of the CIC TAF video of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's where that's from. But I do remember that preview where it didn't really have really have much footage. It just had, I remember it had Indy saying "Trust me" from Raiders, and it had it didn't have the signature eye on it. It was
the eye was just a straight. It didn't have the serif.
It was just like that. So yeah.
It was just a simple. Which is funny too. When I saw the Indiana Jones, I'm gonna say the teaser poster for Temple of Doom. I think the first one they just have the straight eye.
Yes,
they don't have the cross thing.
I think on maybe the book. Was it one of the like the
one of them
storybook or whatever of Temple of Doom? It just used a little eye as well. Yeah,
and one of them had the logo made out of like rock, if I remember. Like little cracks in it too, like it was carved out of stone or something.
Nice.
So we did have trading cards though.
Yes,
look, another Mickey Fresh.
Yep. Ours was Scanlan's in Australia, and that's right, because I sent you a set of the Scanlan's Australian ones.
Cards, yeah. They were here they're called tops. Over there they're Australian. I mean, they're Scanlan. They're Australian. But like you said, I'm trying to think, there's not a lot of merchandise. I look around, I have a lot prior. I mean, a previous or post. In the years since Indiana Jones and Raiders Lost Ark and Temple of Doom, they've made some stuff. They've caught up for lost time.
They have.
Not a lot, because I was going to say I have some Disney World stuff. Here's something.
Yes.
I just saw it here today. And I remember it was one of the first Indiana Jones items you could get. And it's nothing spectacular. But when they opened Indiana Jones in the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, out in California, they sold these maps.
That's right. In fact,
see that?
Is that?
This was at the Indiana Jones Adventures Outpost, and this is a map.
Wrong one. That's a Pirates. That's a Pirates of the Caribbean.
I think it's the same map. Yeah, they just like, Tortuga, Indiana Jones. Doesn't make a difference. So there's that. Well, Disney was the only place you can get Indiana Jones stuff, because I also have a bumper sticker there from the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular. That was the only place you could go out and get Indiana Jones merchandise. I've got the Indiana Mickey behind me. He's over there. They had a set of action figures there too. That's somewhere over there too. They had their own Marion.
Yep, I've got Indy. They also, I think, was it Gentle PVC? Giant produced them, but they also had like a 6-inch Indiana Jones, and they did a Temple. Yeah,
he's over there too. Yep.
That's one thing.
That G.I. Joe thing they made too.
That's right. And didn't he come with a sarcophagus of a mummy?
Yeah. It was from an old G.I. Joe set, like the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, and they just put it in Indiana Jones. And there's two versions too. There's an African American Indiana Jones, and then there's a Caucasian one. Yeah. And they have that, which is, I'm trying to think, what else did they make?
Well, this I got. They had lots of T-shirts. I got that when we visited Walt Disney World in 2017.
Here's the logo. We were talking about, they would make, there used to be a series of books called Create Your Own Adventures. Find Your Fate. And there's the box set.
See, I didn't even know there was a box set. I've got them all individually.
And it comes with so many of them. And it's got the old Indiana Jones logo.
Yep. Some of those I think are different. The spines are different.
Well, yeah, I have them all. And the funnier thing is R.L. Stine, who's the fellow that makes the Goosebumps series,
Yes.
he wrote these.
Yeah.
So, and I just met him last summer. There it is, signed by R.L. Stine.
Oh, cool.
But he and his brother would write these stories there.
Yeah.
R.L. Stine.
I
Now,
did like those.
These don't have the great covers done by Drew Struzan. Not
No.
to knock this artist, but Drew Struzan, who we talk about on the show, is one of our favorite movie poster artists. He did all the Indiana Jones novels. There's
Yes.
Indiana Jones and the Dance of the Giants and the Hollow Earth and the Sky
Peril
Pirate,
of Delphi. There's so many different. Yeah.
the Philosopher's Stone, all that jazz.
Yep. So
is that Harry Potter? I get.
But yeah, there's lots of great collectibles out there. There's some.
Oh no, we didn't mention the TSR games, the Dungeons and Dragons people.
I have got that.
I've got one module
Yep.
because it had like Marion was on the cover, and it was Marion Ravenwood and Indiana Jones. Maybe it was Looking for Atlantis or the Fountain of Youth. I think it was
The one
something like that.
I've got that, and an expansion which was based on one of the Marvel comics where they were with all the statues and the gold, and I can't. That's somewhere amongst my my warehouse in a crate somewhere.
Well, I'm trying to think of the more obscure Indiana Jones collectibles they came out with. They had the book. They had the machete. Did you ever get the machete?
No, my dad though. When I dressed up as Indy from Temple of Doom, and I remember having the shirt ripped off, the arm and everything. And my dad handmade me out of wood. I still have it. It's a beautiful thing. A almost identical machete, so I could carry that and put it on my arm. I'll find it. I've got a photo somewhere. I'll put that up.
Well, no, I remember. I have the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles that came out with Sean Patrick Flannery.
Yes.
I have a pocket knife. I have that still, where you open up like a Swiss Army knife. But there was a machete that I remember wanting. It was in the 80s. It was the knife that he uses in the Temple of Doom. But I was like, I don't think my mom would have been too cool if I had a machete at home.
Yes.
But it was about $100, and it came in a long box, and I think it had a leather sheath that you put it in, and it said Indiana Jones's name on it. It was like etched into the metal. And I always thought that was kind of cool. But again, why would I need a machete? Why would I need any of this stuff if we really want to get into it?
Well, that's for a therapy session later on, so we won't worry about that.
But I remember getting stuff like this when the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out. There was movie tie-ins with I think it's Burger King.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a bunch of Indiana Jones toys and little like Happy Meal toys. And this was the Indiana Jones.
That's kind of cool.
It's what do you call it?
A canteen.
A canteen, yes. Yeah. You can take a little swig of it. But
you can drink that, put some milk in that, and as you wash down your Batman cereal.
Oh.
Or maybe when I eat my Kingdom of the Crystal Skull cereal once we hit 100 subscribers.
Have we reached 1,000 people yet?
Not yet, but we're creeping up to 100. And at this point, we'd like to say, thank you so much to everyone who's been watching the show. And, again, if you enjoy the show, please subscribe. We're getting new viewers every day, which is fantastic. And people subscribing as well. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Well,
and if you do enjoy the show, don't forget to tell your friends, and hopefully they'll enjoy it as well.
I was going to say, before we wrap up,
that Temple of Doom calendar was fantastic.
Temple of Doom calendar,
yes.
Last Crusade calendar.
Yes.
There's not a lot. I mean, there's one of the few shows we can actually show the entire Indiana Jones collection.
Right.
Lots of books. There's the Ultimate Guide there. There's the Greatest Adventures of Indiana Jones.
Yes, that's really good with the artifacts. J.W. Rinsler did again another wonderful behind the scenes book, which is fantastic.
And then we've got multiple storytellings. This is a collection of all the Indiana Jones. This is 3 of them. There's another one that has it's just out there. And of course, if you're a big indie fan, I think you can go look on Amazon or what's the other one? Netflix. You can watch this film here. It's called Indie Fans.
Yeah.
And The Quest for Fortune and Glory.
Yeah.
It's a good one because I'm in it.
That's right. You are. And I think I think the IndieCast also gets a credit in the end credits as well, so that's kind of good.
We do. That was done by Brandon Kalila, who actually works at Disney now as an Imagineer. But we knew him when he was just a kid, and he was coming around and he was filming stuff, and he's in that documentary. And it's a great.
Of course, you've got Raiders, the adaptation that the Raiders guys have done. Where you can also see, if you buy the the remastered version with the flying wing sequence, you can see Laird Malamed from the IndieCast
as the pilot. Yeah,
that's,
and then your friend, I can't think of his name, Steven. He made the one-man show where he does all the Indiana Jones movies in one thing.
He's got some snippets up as well. So there's lots of indie. We're very excited as well with it's a little bit behind schedule, but James Mangold has been Frank Marshall has mentioned him, so officially he's the director for Indy
I think
5.
it's official now. Yeah.
So we've got that to look forward to, which I have no doubt that when that happens, we'll get a flood of new merchandise as well.
Little do people know. I was going to say that now that Disney's gotten Indiana Jones, he looks like this now. Got the ears.
That looks like has he got the Marlon Brando cotton balls in his mouth there? He looks like he's got the mumps.
Well, I don't know. Well, if it wasn't for Disney, we would never have gotten a Funko. And we got Funko, Ed. We've got Funko. Look at the size of this thing.
I know. That's pretty amazing.
Huge.
And I have my fake Funko thanks to you, Mitch, up there on the shelf.
Oh yeah, we've got another thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been, I think it was fun collecting Indiana Jones because there wasn't a lot of stuff out there, not like the Star Wars movies, and it was a little easier on the wall.
We didn't even speak about the Indiana Jones Lego that came out in 2008. There was Lego, it can be expensive, but there was only a limited amount of sets, so that's something you might
like 10 sets, if that. Yep. And then there was the Indiana Jones cereal, the Indiana Jones Pop-Tarts, the Indiana Jones soda cans, which are
gummy bears. Yep.
And it wasn't that much stuff. I mean, it just, like I said, it wasn't toyetic. It didn't really have a universe. And I remember talking to Steve Sansweet at the Skywalker, not Rancho Obi-Wan, the Skywalker Star Wars toy collector fella. And he said, it's just other than Indiana Jones, there's no other character. What are you going to do? Yeah, you can't make multiple. It's not like Luke, where he's in an X-wing outfit, or he's in a desert outfit, or he's in a Jedi outfit. There's nothing you can do with Indiana Jones. He wears the same suit.
He's got a tuxedo. He's got a suit. He's got his fantastic,
got a school teacher suit.
That
he stole from.
I would love to see the classroom play set.
Oh yeah, most kids want that one too. Oh look, it's Marcus Brody. You better watch out, Indy. I think the Army's here to talk to you. Oh, no, Marcus, not the Army. Hey, that's Porkins from Star Wars. What are you talking about? Which freaked me out as a kid.
There's a whole different, that's a whole another episode if we talk about
I want to do a whole William Hootkins episode.
Yeah, well, when we talk Flash Gordon, we're talking William Hootkins.
Star Wars, Flash Gordon, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Batman, Superman 4. This guy was a legend, man. You couldn't stop William Hootkins.
No, you couldn't. And all his names had to do with food. Major Eaton. Porkins.
That's Indiana Bones. This is what Indy 5's going to look like if they don't make that movie.
No, sadly, that might be the case, but that's all right. So that's our look back at I was going to say, I read somewhere, now have you heard this, that tote is actually not pronounced tote, it's pronounced Todd.
What?
Did you hear that?
It's pronounced what?
Todd. Yeah.
How do you get that?
I read that just in my research. I was reading over that and going, that is not correct. Because we gave away for when we did our meet and greets, we gave away Indiana Jones IndieCast tote bags with tote on the cover. So,
I have mine.
Yeah.
Look, this guy here is not called Todd.
No, I didn't think so.
He's Tote.
We didn't even get into the fact that Danny DeVito was going to be cast as Sala. There was so many things we could have spoken about, but
he's a life size right here.
There you go. A life size Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
It could be, yeah.
Or we never got into the fact that Tote
Yeah.
does not leave the desert in that staff car. When they pull away and Indiana Jones steals the horse, go watch the movie. He's not in the front seat. Then when they drive in the chase, he's in the front seat. Then when they get to Omar's garage and it spins around, and I pointed this out to you before, there's not a human being in that front seat. It's a stick with a hat and a coat on it, and they shoot it from behind. There's no person in there. So there
you go.
I don't know why. Well, I do know why. Ron Lacey was not feeling well. He actually had a colostomy bag in real life, and the heat was, I think he either got an infection or something happened. He was in Tunisia when they were doing the Carawan. Is that what? Yeah, Carawan is where they filmed the Cairo set. And I think he got really sick, if I recall. I remember reading something about that in the making of Raiders Lost Ark, that he wasn't there for the whole shoot.
Well, he had retired at that point, I think, and that's when Spielberg got him back to play this villain. So,
I didn't know he was retired.
Yeah, he was working, I believe, as an agent, and then they got him back. But I did also read that Klaus Kinski was originally going to be playing Tote. So
really, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, I think that was and we didn't even obviously talk about Tom Selleck.
No, I was going to say Ron Lacey. The only other movie I ever saw Ron Lacey in
was Buckaroo Banzai.
No, Conan the Destroyer.
He was
the sequel to Conan the Barbarian. He was in that. And
he's the president in The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
He has a small blink and you'll miss him scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. When they pan Hitler and all the people at the book burning, I'm told that he's off to the side. I think he's playing Himmler because he died of cancer and he wasn't well at the time. So that he's just off to the distance as Hitler's walking down the crowd and bumps into Indiana Jones and autographs the Grail Diary. If you look good over his shoulder, I think it was supposed to be Wolf Collar, Anthony Higgins. It was supposed to be all the Nazis from Raiders as characters in that scene. And Ron Lacey, you could see him really quickly. I never caught Wolf Collar, though. I'm told he's in that that sequence there.
Well, hopefully when, once we get 4K versions of it, we can maybe scrutinize the footage a little bit closer and we'll see.
There are some interviews on YouTube. If you go scrounging around looking for behind the scenes footage, you could see Karen Allen interviews. You could see Denholm Elliott. I just spotted one of those the other day. So it's amazing for such a big epic film. There's not more archival footage, there's not more making of stuff.
Well, it's probably all in the Lucasfilm vault, and hopefully, we'll get it for the 40th anniversary, which would be fantastic.
It's too funny. I saw Raiders on the big screen the last time I saw it. I think it was when they re-released it. Was it for the 35th anniversary?
It might have been when was that the IMAX?
Yeah, the IMAX version,
where Mark Ratz did the fantastic artwork.
Yeah. I guess that was, I can't remember anymore. I just noticed on that box set there, it says the 30th anniversary of Raiders Lost Ark. So here we are coming up on the 40th next year. So that box is 10 years old. You know what it does. You know where that belongs, don't you?
That's right. In a DVD player. I mean, in a museum.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, anyway, we could talk
this dead horse.
Yeah, that's all right. We could talk for hours. I know Indy at the back. He's being pretty stoic. He hasn't said anything at the moment. Indy, do you want to add anything? No, he's not saying anything.
Look at this. Young Mitchie draws this.
Wow.
I drew that in 1984. Look at that.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that pretty good? I was a talented guy. So I draw this, and I remember my mom took a copy of it, and she sent it off to California to Mr. Harrison Ford and said, hey, my son won a competition in school, which I did, Artist of the Year in high school. And she said he won for this drawing he did of you. I got a nice stationery that I still have upstairs. And it says Harrison Ford across it, and you open it up, and there's a little note in there from this woman named Renee. I can't remember her last name right now, but she was his personal assistant. It said,
not,
"Dear
not
Mitchell, thank you."
Irene, not Irene from.
No, it's not Irene. It says, "Dear Mitchell, I should have brought it down." It says, "Thank you very much for the artwork. Harrison was very impressed by your artistic skills." He probably never saw it, but whatever.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Well, the fact that it was on his personal
Yeah.
stationery, which I think, I mean, because I've gotten fan mail, you just get the 5x7
Yes.
printed out with his signature on it. But this one was a little thank you card with his, inscribed name on it, and
That's
it came in a
cool.
separate envelope, and it was a thank you card, and it said, "Thank you very much for taking the time to draw this. The artwork's beautiful. You're very talented, and keep it up." Sign, Harrison Ford. And I have that, and I have the little 8x10 that came with it. And years later, I met him.
Yes.
In New York. I didn't bring up the fact that I had the little thank you card from him. I did have an Indiana Jones postcard in my pocket.
Yes.
And I bumped into him, and I said, "Hey, would you sign this for me?" And he goes, "You always walk around with an Indiana Jones postcard?" I go, "I do when I know I'm going to meet Harrison Ford." He goes, "Oh, okay." So he signs it, Harrison Ford, and that's somewhere back there too.
Yep.
And then, of course, we'll go into the story real quick. I met him. My wife takes the picture of me and Harrison Ford. I'm walking away. This woman's very excited. She grabs me by the arm, spins me around, says, "Sir, would you please take a picture of me with Harrison Ford?" I go, "Of course I will." It was dark out. I was nervous. She gave me this camera. It was an old Kodak 110 camera, which was like a rectangle, kind of like this.
Yes.
And she's talking to Harrison Ford. He's getting nervous. He wants to go. He says, "Could you please hurry up?" I go, "Of course, Indy." I put the camera up to my eye. I cannot see them through the viewfinder. I'm looking through the square. I can't see them. I go, "Ma'am, is it off? Is there like a lens cap?" I'm getting nervous. Harrison Ford's getting upset. She goes, "It's fine. Just point it at us and press the button." Whatever. I want to get out of there. So I go up and I go to press the shutter button. There's no shutter button here. I don't know why. My brain is scrambling. Of course, this is probably seconds, but it feels like forever.
Yep.
I find a button here. Okay. My finger goes to press the button. I can see as I'm squinting, Harrison Ford's looking over. He's like, "No, wait, don't." I had the camera backwards. I pressed the button. I took a picture of my eye because I was looking through the shutter. The flash exploded in my face. I couldn't see anything. It was all green. Harrison Ford goes, "You just took a picture of your eye." So, needless to say, it was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. And the woman was mad because she didn't have much film left.
Yeah.
And she gave it back to me. I gave the camera to Harrison Ford. He gave it to me. I gave it to him. She took it out of my hand, called me a bad word that we won't say on a family-friendly show.
Yep.
He's over there advancing it. She gives it back to me. Harrison Ford takes the camera. He puts it up to my eye, says, "How many fingers do I have up?" I go, 2.
Did he do that?
Now? 4. And "How many do I have now?" And then he goes, "Okay." I said, "All right, Spielberg, I got it. You don't have to break my balls, will you?" So he goes, "Okay, fine. Let's do it now." So I took the picture, walk away. My wife, who you might have met earlier on the show, was long gone. She ran away hiding because she was so humiliated that her husband made a fool of himself in front of Harrison Ford. I'm talking to her. He's coming through the crowd towards us.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, "Oh, God, what did you do now?" He comes up to me. Now, prior to this, I had shaken his hand. It was the deadest handshake I ever had in my life. It was like cold fish. He puts his hand out again. I think he's going to hit me.
Yeah.
He takes my hand. This time it's a little firmer grip. He shakes my hand. He goes, "Thanks a lot." I go, "For what?" He goes, "I got a million pictures taken of me, but I'm always going to remember this one." I go, "That's nice." And all night long, as I walked up through the dinner, he was with his friends. He would look over and take that Harrison Ford finger and point right at me and tell all his friends over drinks, "And there's the guy now that took the picture of his eye." And he did that about 4 times.
And this is why we can't get him on the show. Thanks, Mitch.
Somewhere out there, there's a woman who has a picture of my retina.
That's right. Hopefully she's an optometrist and you'll be fine.
And that story happened on April 20th, 1999. It's celebrating its 21st anniversary.
There you go. 6 years later, I got to meet Harrison Ford at the opening of Firewall, where he
that was a great movie.
Yeah, where he walked the red carpet. And all I did was just shook his hand and said thank you. And I've got it on video footage somewhere. It was one of those old school. I was holding like a old school video camera, like the old school digital cameras, like down here. And I was so nervous. Shook his hand. I think I didn't speak properly the first time, and then I had a good handshake, and then after that, I was like, oh my god. And for that second, we made eye contact, and it was good. It was pretty good.
He said, "Do you know a guy that took a picture of his eye?"
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Who knew? 3 years later, we'd be 2 years later, we'd be doing that.
And so I bumped into him on the set of New Haven. I turned the corner, and he was leaning against a tree drinking a cup of coffee, and Steven Spielberg was with him. And I took my camera out, and as I took pictures of him, I could see in the footage the security guys behind him pointing towards me, but I'm looking at them. And next thing you know, they were on me, and they said, "Give us your film. You just walked on the closed set, and you just took pictures." I go, "Oh." And then it was on the news. I got in trouble. It was on the local news, and Frank Marshall saw it and came out and said, "We're very sorry for what happened. Take all the pictures you want." They had, no right to tell you to delete your pictures. And I go, "You're right. They did not." So.
And that's why we can't get Frank Marshall on the show either. Thank you very much.
And then Spielberg and Kate Capshaw, I bumped into them, and it gets worse, doesn't it?
That's all right. That's all right. So that's
the reason why there's a restraining order.
That's right. Well, that's it for our look back at Raiders of the Lost Ark and a little bit of everything else. I'm sure we'll hit Temple of Doom and Last Crusade and Crystal Skull in the future. But best thing to do, go out, listen to the amazing score by John Williams, watch the amazing film by Raiders of Raiders Lost Ark. Watch that on. I don't know what I'm talking. It's been
what the hell are you talking about?
I haven't had breakfast yet. I'm about to faint. So there you go.
Ed, I'm gonna throw it to you now.
All right, throw me the item. Which way are you gonna get it? This way. Hang on. Throw it to me this way. Okay, ready?
Wait,
I got it.
Oh, let's do it again. Okay.
Yeah.
The magic of movies.
That's right.
Here, what's the character's name? Ben Solo. Here you go, Ben.
Thanks.
Ah! You broke it.
I broke it. All right. Signing off. This is Ed Dollister.
This is Mitch Halleck.
And you've been watching Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure.
Trust me.